But let's move on here and let's go up to that next range and talk about the 6.5 to 7.5 midfielders. Who's the best? Who are you looking at? Who do you have in your team currently? Let me pull up some names here from the 6.5 to 7.5 range. So you got guys like Zaha, Hamas, like we talked about. Actually, it's showing here that Hamas did go up to 7.6. So that's interesting. But yeah, so we got Hamas.
Oh, he just the price rises were about 10 minutes ago, so it must have just kicked
yeah,
in.
They probably just happened. So yeah, Hamas just went up to 7.6. All right, so Hamas is up, but so we got Zaha in that range. We got Hamas. We got who else is in that range? Foden is in that range. I almost said Podence again. Foden. Yeah, Tazz, what are you looking at there?
There's kind of 3.5, I guess, in a way for me that I'm considering that range. I think Zaha, you mentioned, James, but also really big on Barnes from Leicester, and the kind of half is Foden. Just because I'm uncertainty of he kind of looks right now with like City having some injuries, he's kind of starting, but I could see him being rotated the most out of City's starting 11 that they showed in game week 2. My favorite pick out of the 3, if I had to choose, will be Hamas for the reasons we mentioned beforehand. Plus, Everton's I think more of a solid team than Crystal Palace and Leicester are right now. But Zaha, out of in that budget range, he has scored the most points out of all those midfielders, as well as he's a labeled as a midfielder, but he's playing up top in a 2-striker formation, so he's more chances of scoring. And then Harvey Barnes just has great underlying stats, and Leicester has after Man City they've run a pretty nice fixtures that make me really interested in him.
Yeah, I definitely should have mentioned Barnes. He had 13 points last week, played the full 90. What else did he do? An assist and a goal, right? Yeah, a goal and assist and play the full 90. 13 points for Barnes. Definitely a good option too. Gasch, what are you looking at?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot. This has probably been my main focus point for the past week with ASM. Trying to get him out of my team somehow and focusing on looking at what to do. And like I said, I was thinking about upgrading him to a higher player, a higher price player. So I was looking at all these names, and Foden right now I think is too much rotation potential. I can certainly see why you'd be going for him at his price, and with the possible returns he can get you, but I just don't think it's something I'd want to risk right now. Barnes actually he's tied with Salah for the most shots inside the box for midfielders with 10. He has the second most touches in the box for midfielders with 18, and only Salah has more. Zaha has also looked really good. He has the third most overall shots in the box. With Mane and Son. So those are, like the typical, like much higher price players that you're comparing him to, which is really good for his price tag. I do have, 1 or 2 dark horses as well. I think Jack Grealish is one to keep an eye on. He's at 7 million right now. And Villa just signed Ali Watkins from the Championship a few weeks back, and then Traore, a right winger from France, I believe they signed him. So if that team can get clicking, he's going to be playing, he'll be the one setting up the chances for those kind of guys and, maybe scoring some of those goals as well. And then the other player I'm actually starting to look at is Under, who just signed for Leicester. He's a right winger. He's only 6 million. And with Perez typically plays a lot better through the middle. So I wonder what Rodgers' long-term plan is, if it's to play like a 4-3-3, because if it is with some kind of right winger, I think Under could be the one who is nailed in that Leicester attack, and I think he could be. Harvey Barnes is a good option for his price, but I think Under could be an even cheaper version of Harvey Barnes to also save some funds.
Dude, that's a good point. But do you think he might need some time to get used to the Prem and get used to the squad? Is he somebody you can bring in right now for an ASM replacement, or is he just somebody to keep your eye on?
He's somebody I'm going to keep my eye on for the next couple of weeks, at least until he's getting minutes, and we can see how Leicester start lining up once all their players return from injury. I don't want to have to bring him in now, and then if Pereira comes back and they switch the formation, and then he's on the bench all of a sudden to have to deal with that. So it's definitely more something I'm keeping my eye on, but one I think could be a potential a really good player.
Yeah, I'm reading here. Brendan Rodgers has not confirmed that he'll even be available for City this weekend. So definitely taking his time getting used to England, getting used to the team, which is to be expected, obviously, especially for somebody so young. C4, who are you looking at in this range?
It's really three names that have already been mentioned: James, Zaha, and Barnes. Outside of those three, to me, those are all lateral moves in my team. That space between, like, let's call it 5.5 to 7 in between there is kind of weird for me. Like, I'm not really looking at any 6 or 6.5 options. At that point, I think I'd rather just keep my 5.5 and upgrade my defense.
I want to talk about Phil Foden. I feel really good about Phil Foden. I was listening to Pep speak about him as well, and a lot of people were expecting Foden to kind of line up as a David Silva-esque replacement, even though not easy to replace somebody of his quality, obviously. But he was the one slated to take some of those minutes away. And Pep was saying, obviously the rotation is a risk with Foden, with any City asset, but especially someone like Foden. But he looked really, really good this weekend, and he wasn't playing back. He is not the type of midfielder who likes to sit back and stay outside of the box, kind of create for others. He loves to dart in, and that's what Pep was talking about, how much he loves to follow the play and finish things up at the end. And we saw that's how he got his goal. He made a great run into the box and followed the play longer than some other players might have, and it worked out for him. And that's just the kind of attitude he brings to the pitch and the way he plays. And Pep was praising him a lot. And I was reading a lot from City supporters. If anybody can predict some of Pep's rotations, I guess I'll listen to City supporters over anyone else. You know, they have the most experience dealing with that. And they said that they even think that Foden might be trusted more so than Mahrez at this point in time, which I thought was a bit shocking. But the way he looked this past week and at that price point, and me knowing that I have Podence as cover, I did take in Foden, and I feel good about him at 6.5. And if he starts getting those minutes, and it is true that he's trusted more than Mahrez, and he's going to be getting those minutes, and he's going to keep following the plays the way he did, and I could see him scoring double-digit goals this season and being really, really good value at 6.5 mil. And nothing crazy. I could see him scoring like 10 or 11 goals. But you take that at 6.5 mil for sure. So that's my pick out of that range. Anybody want to add anything else?
Yeah, how about Mason Greenwood at 6.5? Is that somebody you guys would consider for this price range?
I think so. I think he's 7.5. By the way, just for
7.5.
Oh yeah.
For me, no. For me, no. But let's go to the United fan, Gash.
Well, I mean, until Sancho signs, I think it's Greenwood's. In all seriousness, what's that?
Have you given up on Sancho coming yet?
No. Tazz is coming in at left back, and then Sancho's the final signing of the window.
Okay. All right.
At least in my fantasy land, and soon to be real life. But anyway, it's Ollie likes to with the younger players kind of integrate them more slowly. And I think the reason we saw a lot of Greenwood last year was because of his goal scoring form. He became, practically undroppable. And I think that's the reason why they really wanted Sancho, has been the number one target for so long, is to give some depth to that right wing spot so that you don't have to rely on Mason Greenwood starting every single week, who's, developing into a really good player, but he's still only 18, and he's really more of a, an inside forward / center striker. So I think that we're going to see him more restrained a little bit this season. I think they were playing him that many minutes post restart, especially out of necessity, more so than because who do you have coming in there? Dan James is a good squad player, but he's a left winger, and and he's also not someone you necessarily want to see starting every single week. He's much less effective against low blocks, which United play against probably like 75% of the time in the league. So I don't think so. For 7.5 million, I think I would rather have Foden in my team at 6.5 with the risk of rotation. If United go through the window and somehow in some crazy way don't sign Jadon Sancho, then I think Greenwood will become a lot more viable. But then I'd be really worried about what's going on behind the scenes, where the team is screaming for a right winger, and if they're not developing or delivering that the board to the team, then I think there could be it might just be something to keep an eye on, where it kind of affects how the players play.
Yeah, I just want to say pretty funny. You said that that United have to bring him in for some depth on the wing. Have to bring in Jadon Sancho for some depth. I think he'll be a little bit more than a depth.
No. I said to create depth, because he'd be the starter and you'd have backups there then.
Right. So Greenwood is a little priced out for me personally at 7.5. Last season, what was he, like 4.5? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was exciting. I had him last season at that price, but 7.5 is a lot, because then you're comparing him to, he's more expensive than Zaha, who's going off. He's the same price as James. You know, when you're comparing him with players like that, I just don't see him getting those kind of returns consistently yet. I like him as a player. I think he'll be great, but a little too young, and the minutes aren't guaranteed there to rely on him for 7.5 mil. If he was down at 5.5 or maybe even 6, you know, I would give him. I would have to think really hard between him and Foden there. But yeah, he's just priced out for me. But C4, what do you think?
Yeah, not even considering any United asset right now.
Yeah, they're not looking good. A little scary. Gash, you scared?
No, it's one game. One game is a data point, not a trend.
All right. Tazz?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would consider him at this price range, being cheap. If he's nailed on, starts getting regular minutes, regular 90 minutes for sure, I think, you know, it'd be a cheap way to get into that Man United attack. But I also believe, I think it's just one game, and I think United are going to pick it up, especially with the run of fixtures they have.